Just setting up the room. Figured it's you know, it never fucking just fits, you know, does it? There we go. Nope. There we go. Let's take these coats off as well. Alright, there we go. Ah, you're alright, mate. Fucking this week's me. I'm fucking doing a Christmas special, mate. Fucking Christmas special. Alright, guys. I think you's all like this week's episode. Put a lot of time into this week's show. Right. Loading up the computer. Figured we can have a little chat first, and that, you know. Oh, nice one, Michael. Do you reckon he'll be happy with it? Very special episode this week. I'm fucking buzzing. I know it's going to take me a bit longer than what it normally would, because it's weird. It's a weird one. You weren't supposed to be reading it. It was supposed to be for David. See, fucking using trying to enjoy his gift before he can. Right, guys, as I did the last couple of weeks, because I'm still trying to drum up interest for the podcast, I'm going to be doing a stream on TikTok and all. But we'll get to that when we get to that. Still waiting on the computer. It was turned on and ready. Fucking hell, give us a few minutes, Rowan. Jesus. I thought I was ready, but fucking... What are yous up to anyway? I'm here in my cupboard. I've took the coats off the door so I can move around. Oh, it's not Christmassy and that themed, mate. It's more like it's a Christmas special for me. I treated myself with this one, and in turn, you know, treating yous. With a fucked up one. Right, is this gonna work? It's a fucking cunt, mate. Takes forever, but we'll get there. Oh, nice, Matty. What you playing, mate? I've been playing Tropico 6 the past week or so. Got it off Boomerang Rentals for like fucking, you borrow it for a month for £3. It's pretty good. You're a dictator and you've got to control your country and overthrow the British government and stuff and fucking go to war with the Germans or the English or everyone if you decide to. It's fun. But I keep getting really far in it. Like get 3/4 of the way through the mission and then end up bankrupt or killing everyone or getting turned over by the authorities. It's hard. But I like that it's a challenge. Oh, come on, man. What are you doing to me? Yeah, I can imagine it's good. I see that you've been playing it a lot as well, Michael. Fucking you and Katie. Have you tried it on console or is it just on computer? Fucking that's sick. Oh, Michael, Tape Flip is an Australian music producer. Fucking, and Michael and Rowan, Michael has like a news company. He makes news and stuff and websites. It's sick. Might as well introduce you to each other because I know what you used to do. Don't know what Matty does. Matty's not come back really and answered the question. But never mind, eh? Right, so we've got that. Got me notes. Really cool script. I've spent a lot of time on this one this week, like I say. Like, usually. Oh, fair, man. I've not played GTA 5 for time. That new update, though, looks quite good, the one in Cuba. Yeah, this one's took a while. It's an hard one to piece together. Because I've got a bit more free time, so I'm not at the studio. I can fucking properly invest time into this. Right. Are we there? We're pretty much there. Yeah, I've seen that custom server as well, guys. It's fucking... He runs around on it as a police officer. From what I've seen, anyway. Which looks fun. Like, it's a different way to play it, isn't it? It's gonna work on a fucking... But there you go. Filmmaker and video journalist. I mean, it was close enough, innit? Like, I've never asked you how you describe yourself. Not really ask questions like that, eh? You know, fucking... Right, is this gonna work? Look at this for a fucking... Right, are we gonna have this? Oh, that sounds like something just fucking broke. Should be good. Right. Hello? Oh, is that the sound I like? What fucking volume was that on? Oh man, nothing ever fucking... It never just fucking works, does it? Oh, that's alright, that for fucking 37%. Oh, fucking... Use the fucking wall for a moment. Right. Right then. Fucking wipe my nose like a tramp. But fucking... That's what the Patreon subscription's for. Right. So, as I said, I'm going to do it live on TikTok again. Obviously, I'm not going to answer them. But I probably won't do it from next week onwards. Well, maybe next week, but not the week after, because I'm thinking a lot of people will be at home at the minute. One, because it's winter, two, because it's Christmas. So hopefully we can bring more people into the podcast. And the radio show, you know. This is for the radio show. This will be heard as a podcast for fucking 3 months. I think I'm 3 months ahead now. Like a northern junkie. Fucking look like that all the time, mate. What am I actually waiting for? I've fucking been waiting for the computer to start, Michael. I mean, yeah, I'm in a cupboard under the stairs, mate. So I've been waiting for Audacity to load up and my fucking notes to load up. Computer takes ages to get going, but then once it does, it's fine. Yeah, we got a more serious version of the virus, and parts of now are in the fucking tier 4, which didn't exist up until a few days ago, I don't think. But fuck knows, it's all a bit fucking weird, mate. It's horrible. Not knowing what's going on and that, it's weird. Fucking, I'd be quite happy if I found a weirdo under the stairs, especially talking about the stuff I'm going to be talking about. This one's pretty dark. That's why it's a Christmas special. I like the darker stuff. Is that gonna... That's gonna just slide around all over the fucking fishing rods. Look at this. The tablet's fucking spinning like this, giving a fucking weird... There we go. I knew it was gonna fall. Giving a weird panoramic view. What's this thing here? We'll use this bit of plastic and we'll wedge it in between the wiring for the house. There you are. Oh, fucking TikTok are getting a fucking upskirt of me fucking dressing gown. So what's that? Leeds are in a what? Saying, Jesus, what am I doing? I'm about to start, man. Right, I'm starting now. He says, fucking got that chopped down. Right, there we go. Hey. Oh, I'm fully aware I can prepare before going live, but where's the fun in that? We get a bit of interaction in it, a bit of crowd participation, mate. Fucking hell. Having a chat with people. I've been talking to you, that's been slowing me down. That and the computer being slow. Right, fucking... I won't be able to see that or answer it now. So, fucking... I can't get rid of it, but fuck it. I'm going to press that as well, so that's not distracting. Right. Alright, guys. I'm the world around you, and this is Pause for Thought on Threshold FM. And this week, seeing as though it's Christmas, I thought I'd treat myself. So, I've been sat on my left hand for about half an hour now before I started writing this one, and I thought it might be nice to explore something familiar but different. This week, we'll be looking into the Graspy Fletcher. Before we get right into the meat of the Graspy Fletcher, though, I thought it'd be a good idea to recount what little backstory is known of the so-called Graspy Fletcher. And our Christmassy tale begins in the luckily named town of Turkey Creek in Arkansas, America. Born to strongly religious parents, Sarah, it's spelled like Sarah but without the H. I guess that's Sarah. Could be Sarah. I'm probably going to pick and choose between the two. Anyway, and her father, Michael Granger, on the 5th of October. So Claire would grow up to be the only surviving member of a paranormal event that still scares the people of Arkansas to this day. And it is from Claire that a lot of information has come for this episode. So along with a few other little avenues of research, but a lot of it comes directly from Claire, a lady that went on to become a seamstress and never made a single cent from the retelling of a story, which to me gives the Graspy Fletcher a lot of weight in the world of paranormal and or cryptozoological circles, depending on which side of the fence you more so lean on after this, whether you think it's more paranormal or whether you think it's cryptozoological. Anyway, as a child, Claire would regularly begin... Oh, fucking hell. She wouldn't regularly begin. She was fucking regularly taken to church. Fucking froze anyway, my computer. What a twat. What a cunt. What's it doing? Hey. Claire would regularly begin. Dropping out and not me. Now you see, Claire, she'd regularly be taken to church, sometimes as frequently as 3 times a week. Now I'm saying church, it's not a church as we would know it, as this occurred in the early 1900s. And without access to a vehicle, the Granger family tended to perform their own service in a beautifully described field of 2 tall trees atop a small mound. Now, I've got no idea if this mound has anything to do with the giant burial sites that we've covered in the previous weeks, but with what later happened, I wouldn't be surprised if there was some form of like burial there, you know, like a weird little thing going on, like, you know, like a link to the unusual burial mounds. Saying that though, these mounds usually left the grounds around in lush vegetation, and this field only had 2 trees, so I'm guessing it was probably just a naturally formed small hill. Now, with neither Sarah or Michael being real priests, as in Catholic or Christian priests, they'd never received a blessing or been ordained. It's difficult to work out exactly what these sermons were or what went on in them, you know, during them, because there's no real record of it or method that they'd follow. Is it a methodology when they follow instructions sort of thing? But Claire distinctly remembers receiving communion from an early age and claims that instead of a rice paper wafer that we're familiar with today, or even a piece of bread, the matriarch of the family, Sarah, would hand young Claire a piece of bark, freshly peeled from the larger of the two trees, which is pretty fucking weird, isn't it? Straight off the bat, this is why this is a Christmas episode. It's an odd one, and it just gets weirder. Like Claire describes the taste as bland, as you'd expect. So I guess they got that part right, because the body of Christ, the wafer, don't taste of anything in it. But again, having neither of the parents being ordained at this point, they are just eating a piece of tree, like it's not really been blessed about. Claire described the pieces of bark to be about 1/8 of an inch thick and about 1 inch in length, which is pretty small, but still, I've never chewed bark. And if you think about the things that do eat bark, they tend to have like large incisors, and the bodies are attuned to eating that sort of material. You know, like deer, rabbits, squirrels, and they all eat a bit of bark, don't they? And after seeing an artist's interpretation of Claire, I reckon she would have found it relatively easy, because she's got this goofy looking smile, which feels cruel to say, to be fair. But after what happened to her, because it was a pretty like it was a bad night. But it seems fair to say anyway that she's got big teeth. Is the point I'm making anyway. It'd be interesting to see if a human normally adapts like this, or if it was just a weird coincidence though. So has she started to grow these massive teeth because her mum was force feeding her bark and her dad was force feeding her bark, or does she just naturally happen to have big teeth, perfect for chewing through bark? Don't know if the parents had bark. I'd assume they did if they'd been chewing bark all their lives, but fuck knows. The sermons themselves would last from half an hour to an hour, and sorry, they'd last from half an hour to an hour and a half long. I mean, fucking notes are a bit scribbly. And the parents would regularly read from their holy book. And now again, I can't find any confirmation that this was a Bible. And the stories that Claire recounts are odd. The Bible-ish, but almost from someone who is aware of tropes or tales in the Bible, but hasn't actually read them themselves. Weirdly enough, they have a version of the Great Flood that she mentions. Now, we always have Noah in an episode, so this story I thought would be just as good as any to get my point across. Now, I'm paraphrasing, but here's the gist of the story of Noah according to the stories Claire was told on her holy mound. After waiting for 30 years for a change in the weather, Noah visited a large hill. Not within a mountain range, it was the only hill known to the people in the land. Yearly, many people would walk up and down this hill in the hope of finding the sign promised by the voice. It's already weird, isn't it? Like it's not by God, it's by the voice. Anyway, Noah was a farmer growing grains that had been gifted to his family generations before the voice. Noah's family were viewed as the holy family. Sarah, always told Claire Noah was one of the so-called quote-unquote listeners. Now, I'll try and stop interrupting myself because I know it's going to upset the flow of the story, but as far back as Noah could remember, he always had crops outshone by the local farmers. And he'd become angry, he'd got pissed off and jealous. After multiple conversations with different spiritual men in the area, Noah set off for the hill. He travelled the mound for 40 days and 40 nights until he caught himself up in a storm. There was a storm of winds, lightning, and heavy hailstone, Claire says, a truly biblical storm. Trees fell and were collected by the resulting landslide that covered all the arable land around the mound with new ground, making the mound smaller and unveiling these large rocks. Noah explored the newly cleaned mound and found a hole, a very deep hole that he entered. Now, I know I said I'd stop interrupting, but that seems fucking weird, doesn't it? That he could just go down a hole, just a bit of, like a fucking spot a pothole in ancient times. Did they have rope? Was rope a thing back then like that? Did they have harnesses and that, Anyway, he goes deep into this hole and gets back out again with no explanation whatsoever about how he does it. But I guess Claire was only a kid at the time anyway, so why would she have questioned these stories? Clearly, though, they stuck in her head, though. In this hollowed out pothole, Noah is confronted by a thought, and that thought is a warning. The storm destroyed everything he'd ever known, and there was a worse storm to come. Noah believed the warning and fled the cave. Eventually, Noah got to the bottom of the mound and discovered there was a patch of land completely untouched by the landslide, somehow protected by the felled trees, like they'd built a natural dam to keep this portion of land safe. His wife and 3 children were there, his 2 daughters and his son. As they embraced, a loud, booming voice spoke from nowhere, saying, "If you wish to survive the warning, you must kill your son and spread his blood across the trees. The blood will keep your family safe. Ever a family man, you know, Noah slaughtered his son in front of his own mother and sisters, which pretty fucked. But I think that's where they've gotten two Bible stories mixed up with one another in it. Like, I can't remember the name of the other Bible story, but isn't there a Bible story where some old man gets told to kill his son by God, and he goes to do it, and God's like, whoa, whoa, pack it in, I think. Anyway, it's Christmas week and I've already gotten lost, so let's have a Christmas tune. This is Classified's newest song, and it's called The Bells Are Ringing. Right then, so what we thinking so far? I've got that on pause. It's bit of a swig of my drink. So, with no mentioning of creatures or even of a dove or raven collecting twigs, it's a strange interpretation of Noah and his ark, innit? But see, I don't really think that these bi and tri-weekly sermons were really to teach Claire about the story of Noah or whatever the fuck you would call that story. It seemed like it was to prime her for an existence that most people wouldn't even have nightmares about, like a life of what seems to be torture. Bark wasn't the only thing that the Grangers would ingest at these services. Almost like they had only ever overheard what happened at a mass. They would also do things with blood, without being ordained, or maybe just through being somewhat simple as people, or maybe fucking evil. Like the concept of transubstantiation went right over the heads of these Arkansans, people from Arkansas anyway. For those of you that didn't have it, you know, in Catholic school or weren't forced to go to Catholic school, transubstantiation is when the priest turns your wafers, vimto, and wine into the body and blood of Jesus, of Christ. Now, I can't really remember why this isn't considered magic, but ironically, by doing it incorrectly, the Grangers are alleged to have unleashed magic upon their own lineage, which is terrifying to think like that's. I think that's even possible without knowing you're doing. So anyway, without oh fuck me, it's such a long word to say. Jesus. So anyway, without transubstantiation, the where were Sarah and Michael getting the body and blood of Christ from? You know, it's a genuine question. I can feel you're asking that. Well, we already know that the body of Christ was the tree bark, and if you haven't guessed it yet, the blood of Christ was being harvested from, go on, the local wildlife, bears, owl cubs. Ah, fuck me, not owl cubs. Jesus Christ. Owls, bear cubs, squirrels, songbirds, bobcats, mink, elk. Just some of the things Michael would gather and tether to regularly harvest from. Claire claims that the animals weren't merely hunted, as the family were stoutly vegetarian as part of their religious practices. So the animals would be trapped and tethered to trees away from the mound, and before Mass, the matriarch would order Michael to gather the blood, which would mean sometimes bludgeoning the larger animals and dragging them, trusted up, ironically like a Christmas turkey, up to the holy hill. The smaller tree would then be used as an anchor point for the creature. After a couple readings from the mind of Sarah, Michael would present the holy blade, in the same way that like an altar boy presents his arse to regular intervals to a priest, with what I imagine is the same look of, well, what was a look of fear in his eyes, but maybe not, mate, because they've just all become so desensitized to the fucking weird shit that's going on. And that's both for fucking Michael Granger and for your regular altar boy. Anyway, the dagger or the knife, she never says more than holy blade, but that'd be used to split the skin of Sarah's hand, like she'd squeeze it. I'm guessing she'd squeeze the blade with a bare hand, and then she'd fucking drip the blood into the eyes of the creature. But that's not really the oddest part. The blade would then be handed to Michael, who would regularly reopen his old wounds, and Claire would do the same. And she says that when she was young, her parents would take it in turns in teaching her how to mutilate her own body like they were doing. Now, this being the early quarter of the 20th century, I can't imagine blood diseases were commonly known about. But saying that, I bet there's not a whole lot of research into what blood diseases you contract by, or you are contracted by squeezing the blood of live animals into your open wounds, because that's exactly what these religious fanatics would do. And according to what little records there are of this, they were fine, mate. They seemed quite healthy. Like, fine in the sense that they didn't ever attend a hospital or speak to a doctor. But it is worth bearing in mind both parents were dead before Claire's 22nd birthday. Like, there's no conclusive evidence that it was the ritualistic backyard blood transfusions, as unfortunately the bodies were never completely found, like they were never truly discovered. At least not all of them anyway. Parts of them were, but the larger parts and obviously a few smaller parts were missing. And this is where Claire claims to have lost the lower length of her arm. She claims it's not always been missing from the elbow, which again I've not seen an actual picture of her arm, but it makes out that she'd lost her arm from her elbow, but originally she'd only lost it from like halfway between her wrist and elbow. And like from around 4 inches past her elbow, it got described by what I presume is the guy that interviewed her, like meat wise anyway. And some of the bone was left exposed, continuing a little further towards where her wrist would have been. And this is what this damage was caused basically. See, it's hard to follow. This damage was caused by the Graspy Fletcher, and this it's just fucking weird, mate. Anyway, let's have another song. This is Tabernacle by Royster 5'9". Honestly, I really don't get where they get the name from. I get that it's ripped off a body part, so Graspy, that kind of makes sense because it's, you know, grabbing stuff. It's grasping at things, in it, and it keeps grabbing, like, I guess. But I don't know what Fletcher is. Like, I've looked up the word Fletcher and there's nothing. I don't get what it references, and it's a shame because, like, Bigfoot, you know where you stand with Bigfoot. Mothman, clues in the title, but the Graspy Fletcher, you haven't got a fucking clue, have you? But I'll share what I've found with you about it. Now, the Graspy Fletcher is said to speak directly into your mind with a deep voice. It doesn't just give you commands, though. See, Claire claims that sometimes, especially during the early encounters with the big Graspy, it'd just be like hearing your own passing thoughts initially. Thoughts like, it's getting dark. Was that a hawk or a crow? Or whilst the impression of the creature was left in their minds, but even then, like, what does leaving an impression in your mind mean? The interviewer of Claire compared it to a vision in your mind's eye, like how if you remember something, you can see it all in that darkness that's above your eyes, I guess. You know, like, you can see what you can see, and then above what you can see is just fucking darkness. And below what you can see and to the sides is just all darkness. Maybe they can see it in that bit. Maybe they see the Graspy Fletcher in there. I don't know. But a lot of the time it's all black in it around your eyes. But sometimes, like, I see stuff in that darkness around my eyes, in it, like memories and that, or, you know, ideas. So maybe that's what they're talking about. Maybe it's the same thing. Now, Claire claims that sometimes that bellowing voice would make demands such as release that creature. And after ignoring it for a while, she says within a couple of weeks, they began to realise some of these they began to release some of these injured animals back into the wild, which is pretty fucked. Again, pretty fucked. I'm guessing they'd all died because they wouldn't stand much of a chance of surviving against predators or rivals after being bled religiously for months. But I mean, in humans, I think it takes 28 days for your blood to refill your body or at least regenerate. So maybe they were all right. They're probably traumatized, the fucking squirrels and that, fucking ruined beyond belief in their minds. But physically, most likely they were fine. Or at least, you know, we can pretend they are to make ourselves feel better at Christmas. Anyway, the closest thing we have to a description of the Graspy Fletcher is what Claire describes it as, which is a humanoid creature in the sense it was bipedal. The skin is described as dark with short, dense hair. So, well, it was more so described as in the skin of the face was like dark, dense hair, like short, dense hair, which sounds a bit Bigfootish, right? Except it was only about 6 foot tall, with a face that seemed to be long, not snouted or ape-like, just thin and long, like tall. Imagine the symbol that they use for Rockefeller Records, but like that makes a diamond, but then push your hands closer together so it kind of resembles like the aerial view of a gravy boat, mate. Which that and taking place in Turkey Creek kind of keeps the episode Christmassy. That might be the only Christmassy references we really get in the whole episode. Uh, and it's got growths as well. The Graspy Fletcher's got growths on the side of its face that are compared to a deer's ears, with eyes with the bright green irises, a human-like mouth with constantly visible large front teeth, buck teeth. And it is honestly, it's sounding a lot like a deer seen from a weird angle. Like if you was to, like imagine if you woke up and saw a deer looking down like dead into your eyes, like that sort of face, I guess. I mean, it's weird that this has buck teeth and Claire had the massive teeth as well. I mean, take from that what you will. Like, but then when you remember it's fucking 6 foot tall, you wouldn't think if a deer was leering over you, you wouldn't think, oh fucking oh, that's a 6 foot tall man with the head of a deer, would you? Doesn't make sense. And even then, when I've not even told you about its arms yet, mate. Its arms are supposed to reach past its hips, which is kind of normal. My arms reach past my hips, but with proportionally long fingers included in the arm length, though Claire admits they may have been claws, as they never truly seen them bend or be used. So it might just have these fucking stumpy arms with claws at the end, mate, which is fucked. I've not ever heard of something like this realistically. I mean, there are stories in folklore of creatures that resemble deer humans. Like, I think one was called the Wendigo, and it's got a buck's skull as a head or an elk's skull as a head. But the thought of one that isn't dead or made up of bones seems to be singular to Claire and her account of what happened. Unfortunately, though, as well, Claire is the only account we have of the Graspy Fletcher, and the only witness that we have to this creature at all. So, not because they've been, not because the other witnesses have been poisoned by the big they or been shot, they've not shot themselves in the head a few times. They've not even starved to death at the bottom of a lake attached to some concrete. It's purely because everyone else apparently has been torn apart by the Graspy Fletcher. The victims of the creature was Sarah, Claire's mother, her father Michael, and Claire's fiance William. Some people believe that Claire was responsible for the murders, but it was never really an investigation as such. The event was sort of ignored and was literally impossible to find any evidence of a news story for me when I was researching this. It's purely just going off what Claire said, and there wasn't really anything else from the time. So we only have Claire's account. So anyway, we'll have a song and then we'll get into what happened the night of August 14th, 1923. It's another Christmas song because it's fucking Christmas week. This is an older one this time, and you probably all know it. And it's got some deer in it as well, reindeer mentioned in it, so it's kind of fitting to the story at least. This is Weird Al's The Night Santa Went Crazy. Oh, and we've had fucking dropouts, guys. What's going on? Oh, only a brief one, though. Starved to death at the bottom of a lake attached to some concrete. That's alright, we can fucking, it's not really missed anything. It's fine. So, set the scene, for the events of the Graspy Fletcher. It's sometime after 4 p.m. on Tuesday, the 14th of August, 1923. And it's weird that we can limit it down to something so precise, but that time frame comes because William, the fiance of Claire, worked in a local shop and had finished working as normal at 3, which seems strange immediately because you don't really think early 1900s and think shift patterns there, but that's not the least believable part of the story though, I guess. So it's early evening or late at night on a Tuesday, and it's time for the Granger family's first sermon of the week. So Claire claims it was William's quote unquote baptism into their religion. He'd been attending the sermons for the past 4 years, and the family were ready to welcome him into the religion. And he was the only outsider to ever even be privy to these services at all, possibly the only other person to even know that these events occurred. And now, as it was a baptism, Sarah claimed that they would need the blood of a fresh creature. Luckily, Michael had captured an elk that was yet to receive its first cuts, though it had apparently received Sarah's blood in its eye to bless it. To ready it for the service, I guess, because I guess that's how they bless the creatures. I don't know why. Why would you squeeze your own blood into the eye of the animal? It just seems morose. But that's fucking what she was doing. I don't know if it was a male elk or a female elk, but it's got to have been a young elk, can it? Because they could keep it trusted up to a tree, like I said at the start, and like, how did he get it there? It's either got to be a young elk or fucking Michael had ungodly fucking superhuman strength, because to drag or otherwise fucking force a fully grown wild elk up a hill, that'd be fucking hard for anyone, mate, let alone some mentalist who regularly self-harms himself with a dirty knife. I can't imagine his body was up to scratch. And that's not even supposed to be a pun, you know. Anyway, the other animal that was used in this service for the baptism was the so-called fucking divine bobcat. So no idea why it was divine, never got explained. Maybe they'd had it for a while. Maybe it was more so lucky than divine because it hadn't died from all the bloodletting. Fuck knows. Logic goes out of the window with this week. Now, what happened next is fucking mental. If it wasn't already, you know, it's already fucking weird. After the usual rigmarole of Sarah spouting some nonsensical ad-libbed biblical story or two, it came time to baptise William. After all, he couldn't partake in the body and blood if he wasn't a member of the church. The baptism was relatively similar to a regular baptism. No pervert in a frock, but just Sarah with a jug of water. Apparently, though, the water smelled somewhat potent, at least according to Claire, which fucking makes me think it could have been wee or watered down wee, but going off all of the stuff in this, it was probably diluted blood or something. I don't know. Anyway, the wetness was poured over the fella's head, and that's it. He's in. That is literally all the baptism was, pouring the fucking juice on his face. Nothing too special about it. It isn't until towards the end of the mass and what happened in the night where it actually gets interesting. William witnesses Sarah squeeze the blade and leak her blood into the eyes of both the elk and the bobcat. Then they begin to cut themselves. Claire was tasked with making the first incision on William as they were to be wed, and she did it without an issue as well. She says she didn't think anything of it, nothing untoward at all. That's completely normal. My dad did it to me, my mum did it to me, I'm going to do it to William. Fuck. You know, that's I guess in this religion, this crazy fucking 3-man, well now 4-man religion, that's what they do to each other, innit, I guess. Now, the rest of the sermon goes on without a hitch, no problems, but towards the end, Claire claims there was a conversation between Sarah and nothing, like a change in the usual monologue, as if Sarah was answering someone or something. Now, this seemed to fester in Claire's mind up until the point where she claims she was also answering the voice, which is where that comes back again. The voice returns, which is fucked, man. That was in the story of Noah. Well, their fucking bizarre retelling of Noah, which is interesting in itself, because if this had took off, that could have been the story of Noah that everyone knows. Do you know what I mean? Because the story of Noah just got changed from the story of Gilgamesh. The Epic of Gilgamesh supposedly became the tale of Noah, and it just fucking changes, done it every few hundred years. So who knows? Fucking Noah could have been potholing instead of building an ark. I mean, it's unlikely, and I don't know what happens with all the animals and that. I still don't get the animals. There's a link to animals within the story, but fuck knows. Anyway, Claire starts noticing the voice anyway, and at this point she noticed that Billy Boy had broken out into a sweat and had started to shiver. Now, I'm going to imagine that fucking young William was shivering and fucking sweating from having the blood of 2 different animals poured into his open wounds. I'm guessing these had developed tolerance, you know, fucking Claire, Sarah and Michael Granger must have developed some form of tolerance to it all, because they'd been doing it for years. Like, so, and I would presume if you're going to survive it, your body defends itself, and maybe they had really fucking strong blood that could fight off any infection. Maybe people were just built differently 100 years ago. Fuck knows. Anyway, Claire was trying to comfort William, and she says that the voice, or she claims that the voice started to become stronger, and that's when the creature appeared from the branches of the larger tree, landing on the floor around near them, to which Claire claims they all turned towards the creature and stared at it as it spoke to them. Claire is said to have become emotional at this point in recounting the story, at least according to the interviewer, and as if she was fucking reliving all this trauma. But I think even that's weird. Like, why wouldn't she have broken down when she's talking about fucking slicing open her own fiance so that her parents could drip the blood of a fucking so-called holy bobcat, sorry, divine bobcat into her and a fucking elk? Like, it's mad. Like, why is the part, why is that the part where she cries? Why does she cry when she remembers this creature falling from the tree? I mean, it makes the creature seem scarier. Um, I don't understand how it's not already broke her to talk about it again. She's got to be fucking hard as nails, mate. Because I was creeped out long before I got to this part in the story. But I mean, that's just me. I mean, let me know what you think of all this, you know, in the Discord and that. But the whole leaking blood into the eye of the animals got me. That's where I was like, this is the fucking Christmas episode. It's just that detail of it that makes me think that whatever it was they thought they were doing, they must have genuinely believed in it, because that bit there just seems so unnecessary. And in case you were wondering, there is no actual details as to why they were doing this, why they were doing the bloodletting, other than it was just to practice their religion. Anyway, so there's this 6 foot tall deer man, again, which confuses me as to why it's not just called the deer man or even just fucking demon, you know, like demon with an extra E. But I guess it was a traumatizing event for them, and I quite enjoy marketing and that in it. So, I mean, it would make more sense if they were going to try and sell cuddly toys, I guess, to call it Deer Man or something. But, you know, as it was, I don't get why the locals decided to name the creature that the fucking Graspy Fletcher. And it wasn't even the family that named it. So it's just so bizarre. It's as if the story was around and then the story got removed. It's still, that's not the thing to focus on anyway. What we should focus on is that there was this lanky monster with a furry deer-like face and potential claws, and maybe, well, definitely less intimidating, you know, fucking massive buck teeth. Now, Sarah, brandishing the holy blade, leapt at the creature, only to be cast to the ground by a swing of its arm, tearing the woman's face as she screamed, and that's a sound that Claire would regularly recollect against her will, which again sounds like trauma. But you know, I'm not a doctor, but fucking, it's, I can't imagine how you could just sit down with this woman and talk to her about all this and watch her break down. Then again, she stayed so calm apparently up until this point. But maybe the interviewer said that so he didn't. He or she, imagine it's a he, 'cause it's the early 1900s, didn't just come across as a dickhead, like for fucking re-traumatizing and making her live through it all. Anyway, Michael supposedly sat completely dumbstruck, staring at Claire as Claire was tending to William. Then he dived at her and tried to pin her down, to which Sarah stood up and tussled with her husband. It was at this point that the Graspy Fletcher made its move, and that move was a quick dash to the incapacitated William, and he torn a hole straight through his cheek, slicing his face open, at least according to Claire. With that, then, the fucking Graspy Fletcher disappeared down the holy hill into the darkness. Now, if that happened to you, no one would believe you. They'd think you're fucking mental. Holy shit, what have you done to your fiance? What are you on about? Why have you got an elk? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's fucked. Now, it's hard enough to carry a person, but to also control said elk, so to control a wild elk, which is tethered, so it's got some form of fucking reins, a fully grown bloke, a woman, and try to compete with whatever the fuck just occurred, like in your head, that all seems a little hard to work out. Like, what the fuck do you do in that moment? But I guess adrenaline got them through it. So maybe Michael and Claire were running on fumes at this point, but maybe Claire doesn't remember it all properly because the adrenaline was just fucking coursing through her. It's this disbelief that made me consider a couple of things, though. For example, the diet of the creatures in the area. Now, remembering last week where we touched on the stoned ape theory from what was last week's episode, man? We were, oh fuck me, what was his name? Fuck me, can someone remind me of who came up with the stoned ape theory? My head's gone blank. Oh, fuck me, oh my god, what was his name? It wasn't Michael Tallinger, that's the bellman. It was, his name is... Come on, is anyone on the YouTube? Come on. Who came up with stoned ape theory? What about down here? Do we know what the stoned ape theory is? Stoned ape theory, guys. Anything? I can't remember his fucking name. Oh well, we're just gonna have to fucking glaze over that bit, I guess. Buzzing, Terence McKenna. Well in. My head just went blank, mate. It's fucking full of all this. This is why it's nice to have a community surrounding the podcast. It's fucking sick. From Terence McKenna last week, we briefly went into that a little bit. Now, and obviously the power of magic mushrooms. And I was wondering if it was possible that the elk could have ingested some magic mushrooms and that psilocybin had been coursing through the blood of the elk and in turn been put directly into all of their bloodstreams. Now, it doesn't explain a mass hallucination that they all shared, but in reality, there is only Claire's account to bear in mind. But they'd survived everything blood-wise so far. But the bobcat was also held in a high regard for some reason, and families on the whole usually enjoy testing the boyfriends and girlfriends of their children, especially when they're new. So I looked into if bobcats could have a particularly dangerous blood. And obviously a fucking dead end. No one's ever tested to see if you inject bobcat blood into a person, does it fucking burn them? Except, though, which might be a push, but fuck it, they can contract feline AIDS. So I guess they could have been infecting themselves with bobcat blood strewn with feline AIDS. It's a long shot, innit? But could it also be that they did the unusual activity of mixing their bloods? So they'd mix the blood of, like, say you've got the family member's blood all on that knife. So it's all, Claire's blood has come from both Sarah and Michael. So realistically, how could they infect her? But then they've mixed the blood of Sarah, Michael, and Claire into William. William really didn't take well to it. And then you've also got the fact that they've mixed bobcat blood and elk blood within all of themselves, which I don't know, is that part of the reason as to why something so strange happened? I mean, I'm fucking talking about this like it's normal, mate, but that seemed different to what would normally happen there. But if the bobcat blood usually burnt them or left them in pain or something, then it would make sense that Sarah would then describe it as the divine bobcat, because then it would mean they use it less, so it hurts them less. And that's why it became holy or special, because that could explain that away. Doesn't explain away the quick deaths, because like fucking cats can live with feline AIDS. After looking it up, cats can live a whole entire life with feline AIDS and be perfectly fine. And they were all fucking dead before the next morning, mate. So it doesn't add up. Anyway, I looked up in forums as well whether magic mushrooms are common in Arkansas, and apparently they do grow there. They're pretty hard to come by. They're quite rare, but unlike in the UK, supposedly the most common time to find them in Arkansas is late summer, which is like August is more so midsummer, I would say. But I guess it's a possibility that the elk had then ate these mushrooms just purely by chance. Then they caught the elk a couple of days before or a week before, whenever it was. We didn't really find out when they caught the elk. And then they fucking let its blood relatively soon after it ate the mushrooms. I don't, it's hard, isn't it? It's hard to fucking work out. It's all a possibility. It's just possibilities at this point. After all, like, how likely is it in the first place that there'd be a family of nutters doing this at all? Could it be nature's weird way? If they say like fucking nature controls everything, you know, and so could this been of nature's or mother nature's or whatever you want to call that fucking an entity of some sort? Could it have been their weird way of making all of this stop? I know that implies there's a greater force at play, but it's all just so fucking mental. Anyway, let's have a break from this, and we'll come back to the second leg of the story in a minute. because it's time for this week's Here's How. And this week, here's how to impress a stranger at a bar. When your eyes lock across the room, circle the room, maintaining eye contact with them the entire time. Spiral round them like some form of songbird, slowly getting closer to them as you walk the room, until you're right up to them. Then dazzle them with your wit, like said songbird would do with its plumage. You're already in. You can pretty much say anything you want at this point if you've maintained eye contact with them for that long. If you realise you're drinking faster than your new drinking partner, simply swill your alcohol around your mouth. Then as you go to take the next swig, simply replace what was in your mouth with some of the fresh drink from your glass. They'll love to see that you can control yourself with substances. Offer to take them to the bathroom if they seem a little tipsy. They may appreciate the offer of help from a stranger in their drunken state, or they may even see it as flirting. It's important to establish a line, though, here, so you should make it clear that you have no intentions of cleaning up after yourself or them. Privacy is important, and as this is a potential new relationship, and if you're wiping each other after the bathroom, the magic will quickly fade away, and you'll both be back to square one again. Listening to a group as they talk until you know all of their names and you can distinguish them apart. Then approach and talk to them using all of their names. Some people will have, they'll think this is a bit creepy. So to prove that you haven't just been listening in, you'll also want to show off a couple sleight of hand tricks as well, to the crowd to earn the trust so they don't just think you've been listening. When people are ordering from the bar staff, tell every punter at the bar the name of the staff that is serving them. Now, it doesn't matter if you actually know the staff member's name. They won't be able to hear you. And if you're facing away from the bar anyway, they'll never hear you at all. Everyone will think you're a local and a frequent attender of the bar. They'll all think you're some form of high roller and immediately hold you in a high regard. Tell everyone you used to be a bouncer, but after having children, you couldn't keep up with the job because of the hours. For fuck's sake, man, every week, every single week, I fucking trip up over myself at part of it, man. It's because my mouth starts to get dry. I'm very conscious of doing the Here's Hows. I don't know why. I try to word them so they sound a bit more like tongue twisters, I guess. So it sounds a bit punchy with the music behind it. Tell everyone you used to be a bouncer, but after having children, you couldn't keep up with the job because of the hours. Then show them some prepared photographs of young children from your wallet or purse. If it all goes well and you spend the night with them, you can tell them not to worry about waking the children because they're not even yours anyway. When leaving the smoking area, collect the dimps from the surrounding area off of the floors and tabletops. Stash them in one of your clear polythene sandwich bags out your pocket and carry on with your evening. This will be a great way to subtly impress women in their early 20s with brightly coloured hair, or young 20-year-old men with shiny wire-framed glasses, as they'll all think you care about the environment. Always have a lighter on you. It's a great way to make friends and seem helpful and friendly. But we're not trying to make friends this week. We're trying to impress people. So after lighting someone's cigarette or having received your lighter back from a pair of hotties, give yourself a smiley on the back of your arm. Make sure you never do it in the same spot as you might get an infection. They'll think you're hard as fuck and feel safe around you. If it comes to having a tactical, make sure you do it from a distance. Throwing up directly into a toilet bowl is fucking child's play, but from 4 feet away or into an ashtray in the centre of a table, that takes precision. Bring your children with you. I've just fucking burped down the microphone. Bring your children with you. If they're particularly small or young, conceal them in a large handbag or under a baggy sweater. Some drinkers may be jealous of your bond with your child and how much you share with one another, but others, the ones you're trying to impress, they'll be overwhelmed by your connection to your child and how little you don't want to be without them. And that's the end of this week's Here's How. So in the next leg of the Graspy Fletcher's epic, it's a short leg really, a lot like with other mysteries and cryptozoological occurrences, as it starts to get complicated or interesting every time. The facts become a bit fast and loose. All we know for sure is that Claire was found in her home surrounded by pieces of her father, mother, and fiance. She claims that not long after their return, they all began to be violently sick and bleeding from their ears, eyes, nose, mouths, orifices basically. But realistically, we know at some point they were also bleeding from their forearms, the knees, the general legs, torsos, arse cheeks, pretty much everywhere, as their entire corpses were never found. So, whilst they were being a bit poorly, they were visited again by the alleged Graspy Fletcher, who tore each of them limb from limb before escaping with their body parts, even about a quarter of Claire's arm, which was later amputated up to the elbow. She was jointed like a chicken, really, which, again, a little bit of Christmas reference for you. And I guess that healthcare wasn't great then, and she was fucking lucky to survive what happened. To be fair, if you got attacked now by some fucking demonic creature that looked like a deer with fucking claws past its knees, and it rips your family to shreds, and all you lose is a bit of your arm, you've done fucking well anyway. Fuck healthcare. You've done well to survive that. So it's even to go on to become a seamstress, a one-armed seamstress, is fucking mental. They must have had machines or something. Like, I don't. Maybe she just worked in the factory. Maybe it's a fucking. I don't know. I don't know how she could have been a seamstress, to be honest. I mean, that seems a little bit unlikely. But there must have been a machine or something she could use. I mean, she could have used her elbow, I guess, to push the fabric with her hand through a machine, I guess. Oh, fuck knows. Some people believe Claire killed them all. I don't know if that's what you're thinking. I don't know what I'm thinking. Or maybe, I think it seems a bit more likely, to be honest, that maybe one of them went mental and tried to kill them all, and Claire in turn managed to defend herself after what seems to have been a fucking lifetime of torture. I think I feel most sorry though for William. He just wanted to get his end away with a religious girl and ended up embroiled in a fucking bloody massacre. Authorities supposedly discovered the animals, mostly dead, as Michael kept the location a secret from the family as part of his role. Weirdly enough, there was stories that the tree that provided the bark of Christ also died, like withered away. Now, that seems like one of those weird, mysterious things that always gets added on to the end of a story like this. But I studied horticulture in it, so if you do remove, like, you'd have to remove a solid ring of like 2 or 3 inches of bark from around the tree, but that is enough to kill a tree. So you got to bear, maybe they could only reach so high up the tree and they just kept taking it. Or maybe they were taking it from round the tree to try and spare the tree. I don't know. Like, because removing the bark damages the phloem and xylem, which is what moves the water around the plant. And but the bark also protects the tree against infection and the weather. So if you've removed all of that, I mean, they were only thin slices that removed, so it seems unlikely. But if these fanatics had been doing this to the same tree for fucking, how old was Claire? 22. So for 22 years at least doing this. And they'd also at the same time then stopped doing the bloodletting near its roots. Maybe the lack of nutrients, like the extra nutrients from the blood, was keeping the tree alive even though it had less uptake. I'm not sure, mate. It probably just one of them weird things that happened. It probably just a fluke. Maybe the tree just fucking died. Like, it's something to, like, that lack of nutrients coming in is something to factor into its death. But I mean, I can't be too sure in it. And I wish I had more to tell you about the Graspy Fletcher. I really do, but there isn't much else out there on it. It's never been seen before or since. There's not really much talk of a deer man knocking about. I mean, you've got the Loveland Frogmen of Ohio, which are these weird little frog humanoids. You've got the fucking Tuscumbian space penguins. They were in Tuscumbia, which is, I think that might be near Ohio, I think, or Utah or something. I can't quite remember where that was, but they're almost humanoid creatures. They look like little people in, like, not little people as in like the medical thing, they're just like literally like 2 foot tall, like penguins in space gear, basically. But like, America's full of weird humanoid creatures. Like, you got fucking Bigfoot, mate. I could have done I could do a few weeks of shows on Bigfoot. I mean, you've got Bigfoot all around the world, though, as well. You don't really have to Scumby and space penguins all around the world. And you don't have fucking the Loveland, Ohio frogman all around the world, albeit that kind of also kind of sounds like a grey wearing jeans, which is fucked. But who knows, mate? Who knows? Anyway, that's it from me. I'm the world around you. This was Pause for Thought on Threshold FM. Fucking Merry Christmas, guys. Stay on today for, you got HDR at 4. Jimmy will be about at 7 with Jim will Mix It. And tomorrow, you got fucking Soil, mate. Fucking week 10. I think we're going to be live on YouTube. You can watch our faces. Me under the cupboard. Jimmy in his room. Fucking something to look forward to. Episode 10 of Truth Seeking tomorrow night. I'll see you in a bit. Right, guys, that's it. So what did we think of the Graspy Fletcher? Weird one, wasn't it, man? Fucking weird. Right, guys, I'm going to go and get this edited because this is the earliest I've had it done for a while, even though it's due tomorrow, you know. But normally, I don't normally do this till like 6 o'clock in the evening, but I've been able to do it a little bit short, a little bit sooner. If you're a Patreon subscriber, thank you for being a Patreon subscriber. If you're watching this live right now on YouTube, if you want to see the other ones of these, where you get to see me mess up and stuff and fucking chat a little bit of shit with you first, albeit you won't be able to answer because it's not going to be a live. It's going to be a recording, innit? But either way, fucking, if you want to be a Patreon subscriber, there's a link in my link tree. If you're already a Patreon subscriber, thank you very much. Without you, I wouldn't be able to release the podcast every week. I'll fucking see you in a bit, guys.